friends. Welcome to my new podcast. My new podcast will be inspired by a lot of different things, mainly cooking and recipes, is mainly what this is going to be about. I picked a name for my podcast, which is Everyday Living Recipes with Love. Now, today is the first episode, and I'm going to kind of explain how I got the inspiration for this episode. And we're just going to talk about some memories and stuff. And you can join the conversation with my email to the podcast, which I will say at the end of the podcast, that you can just email with questions or just stuff you would like to talk about on another episode. Recipes, we can talk about our love of recipes, maybe a recipe that you like, you want me to talk about. I can sure do that. This is also a podcast just to relate to others, other busy moms, grandmas, anybody who wants to talk about life, recipes. It's mainly a talk podcast where we can just discuss together and you can join in the discussion. So, this is, of course, the first episode, and so it's going to come with a little introduction of the inspiration that came about. My grandmother had a radio talk show. Well, yeah, it was kind of a radio talk show. Yeah, back then that's what it was. um, so she had this talk show at her local radio station, and she would just share her recipes from her family or just recipes that she came up with on her own. She loved sharing her wisdom about cooking and recipes, and oftentimes she would even talk about us on there, her family, birthdays, stuff that was coming up that she was doing with her grandkids or her kids. And let me tell you, that was kind of embarrassing sometimes when she would bring up your name. But we loved it. Now I love it more. But then I was like, come on, Grandma, don't talk about me on here. But that was just a kid being embarrassed. She started this radio show 38 some years ago. The radio show quit doing talk shows years before her passing. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. But she had been doing it for 38 years, so we'd have to do the math on when that actually was. But she just loved doing this and talking to everybody and just relating with everybody. And she would talk to you just like you were family. And so that really inspired me to start a podcast. That's what they're called these days. Since radio talk shows you really don't come by often anymore. And her show was called Everyday Living Show. And so that's where the name kind of comes from, too. I just wanted to kind of incorporate the name, but kind of put my own spin on it as well. So it wasn't all about recipes, like I said. It was like wisdom and talking to people on air. People would call in and talk to her, and while she was reading one of her recipes, and they would say, "Oh, that sounds so good," or they would make comments like that, or just talk, or if they had any questions, they could call in, and they were on the air. And so she really liked this. So that's my inspiration for that. I also would like to share something very cool with you. She did make cookbooks for the radio station here in our town, where she wouldn't type them out. Someone else did that part, but she would come up with what recipes she wanted in there, and not all of them are her recipes, but she would find recipes that she came up with or came from our family, and she would put them in these cookbooks, and then she would say, hey, you guys should pick something out that you like and put it in there, and we'll put your name on it, tell people who you are. And so we would do that. She did one for the 50th anniversary and one for like the 60th anniversary. And so I got both of those, actually, those cookbooks. So like the first part of the cookbook would be like family and friends, and it would like show names of her friends and family that she wanted to incorporate in her cookbook. and share their favorite recipes that they liked. And so it was pretty fun to read back on these and come up with some recipes that I even forgot about or the ones I even picked out. And so it was pretty cool. And so I thought, well, let's do a podcast where we can kind of do this thing again in another time. Like now do it in a podcast form for 2023. I think it would be a lot of fun. And so here I am. So we're just gonna, this is what the episodes are gonna incorporate. Just kind of a recipe at the beginning and just kind of talking and sharing our thoughts together. You can't call in, but that's why I have an email address where you could just email me with stuff you would like to talk about, or maybe sometime I'll put this on YouTube. Probably not live with my picture on it or anything, but just the picture of the podcast I haven't even come up with yet. But put that on YouTube and just you guys can join in the comments section with discussions too. And just I can still read the emails when people send me emails and you guys can join the conversation. And so that's what this podcast will be about. And I really hope that you're interested in listening to this podcast and joining me for the fun that we can have. I might even have some special guests that come on. My mom might like to do this too. Maybe I can bring her on for a couple episodes. She can share some memories of what she remembers because I think she started this podcast when my mom was in high school. So maybe she has some memories that would be kind of fun to share and just share the love. And so I will not share her whole full name, but her first name was Jeannie, and that's all I'm going to share. So it was very hard to come up with a very first recipe to share. But I kind of thought, well, it's the first episode, so maybe we should share something sweet, like on the sweeter side, desserts, everyone's favorite. And today is Valentine's Day, so why not? So I got to looking through like the first section of the cookbook, which was the family and friends section, and where she put her name on these recipes. I'm assuming they're recipes of hers. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming. And so I looked through the first two pages and I thought, let's start with something sweet, a dessert that would be fun to share for the first podcast. So that's what I'm going to do. So I found this recipe and it is very simple too. Let me add. With this cookbook, she really tried to find simple recipes that you could cook and not take so much time. And that's the lovely part of it. Because who wants to take so much time in the kitchen? You can have more time for your family. And so that was kind of her motto of trying to save time too. So these are simple recipes. They're not complicated recipes. So we're going to start with like a very popular recipe. I'm sure everybody loves chocolate and peanut butter. Am I right? It's a very good combination. I love peanut butter and chocolate. Most people's favorite candy bars are Reese's too. So I found this chocolate peanut butter cake recipe with her name beside it that she put in like, I think this was the 60th year. Yeah, the 60th anniversary cookbook for the radio station. That's the first book I'm starting with. I don't know why I'm starting with that one. I'm kind of going backwards, but that's fine. We can just do this the way we want to, and I'll just find the recipes from books when I'm ready to, and we'll just do it that way at our own pace. So, this is from the 60th anniversary, and I thought, well, this would be a good topic to discuss on the first introduction episode. So, let's get into the recipe. So, like I said, these are very simple, and you're just going to start with a devil's food cake mix. So, our favorite chocolate cake mix, right? Devil's food is so good. Now, I do like German chocolate too. That those two are like my top two chocolate cakes. Now, what's your opinion? I'm sure everybody has theirs. But devil's food is probably the first one for me, German chocolate being the second. And I've really been getting into dark chocolate lately. Like they have these dark chocolate cake mixes, and I've always thought about trying them. I haven't yet, but I've been really enjoying dark chocolate more than milk chocolate. And I think it's supposed to be a lot healthier for you too. So that's good news for me. So then you're going to start preparing the cake according to the package, of course. And you're going to use a grease 13 by 9 by 2-inch baking pan. So you're going to start there. And then in a small mixing bowl, in like a separate bowl, you're going to combine the peanut butter. So you're going to do 1 cup of creamy peanut butter and 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil until smooth. So you're going to kind of mix that together until it's smooth. So while the cake's in the oven, you take the cake out and while it's warm, not when it's hot, it just says while it's warm, you spread it over the warm cake. And then you just cool completely on a wire rack. You place the frosting in a microwave safe bowl. You microwave that on high for 25 to 30 seconds or until pourable. So you're going to soften that up a little bit. Wait till you can pour it. Then you're going to carefully pour and spread over peanut butter layer. Then you're going to let it stand and sit. Now it says this makes 12 to 15 servings. Now, doesn't this cake sound so good for like a birthday or something you're celebrating or a get together? I do remember her making this a couple times, and it was so, so, so good. Of course, why wouldn't it be? It's a sweet dessert that kids like, chocolate and peanut butter. Now, my brother didn't like peanut butter, but sometimes, now you got to relate to this. Sometimes my mom or my grandma would go, "Hey, there's no peanut butter in this." And he would just eat it. He would never know. I know a lot of people try that with their kids. I try that with my kids. No, they know the difference. Okay. There's no getting past them. So, um, so this recipe is just sounding so good. I think I'm gonna go bake myself a cake. Yeah, what do you guys think? You gonna bake this today? Most people have cake mixes on hand. I know I don't because I really don't eat desserts as often now. But so what's your favorite cake that you've had like made or for your birthday or just a cake in general? I really have been enjoying angel food cake lately. It is so good. And it's a little healthier option, not much, but a little. I also really liked when I was a kid cookies and cream. I would always pick that for like a flavor of ice cream or just, I loved Oreos and the regular chocolate ones too. Nothing compared to the regular Oreos, the double stuffed or the original. Not the white Oreos or like the plain Oreos. That just didn't do it for me. I had to have the chocolate version, the original. And I would always pick that. Mom made me a cookies and cream cake more than once, and I just loved them. And that's my favorite ice cream flavor. Um, Ice cream is really good with cake to me. I always had that from every one of my birthdays. Mom would let us pick out what we wanted to eat that night for our birthday and our cake. And so we always had cake and ice cream, whatever one we wanted, she'd cook. Any ones that had like different toppings, just our own little creations. And so that was always a tradition on our birthdays. We got to pick our supper and all that. And so it was really fun. Do you have any stories to share about your cake adventures? Especially as a kid, because your parents always spoiled you. Like, this is your day. You do what you want. You pick what you want. It'll be here for you. And so I try to carry that on to my children. But they're not really sweet chocolate people. They are kind of like they'd eat more of a cupcake than they will a whole cake with frosting. And sometimes they don't like frosting. Sometimes I'll just make them a cupcake with no topping on them. That's what they usually like. Um, so they're not really much into cake, which I was kind of surprised. But I have one kid that's allergic to everything too. That's in cake, like eggs, not milk. Milk isn't in cake, but like eggs and milk. And she's allergic to tree nuts, and she's not allergic to peanuts, so she can have peanut butter. It's just the tree nuts like almonds, pecans, pistachios. There's another one, walnuts. I don't think she can have walnuts, or maybe she didn't test on that. I think she can have walnuts. But I never really was a fan of like nuts in my desserts, like banana bread and stuff like that. So it really wasn't a problem for us to give up the nuts. But it is very difficult to find food for children that are allergic to milk, eggs, because it's in everything. You don't think it is, but man, it's been a struggle for us. Her allergies have been getting a little better. All she gets is eczema, so it has been getting a little better with the breakouts and stuff, and so we've been really lucky. But she hasn't had ice cream at all in her life. She has to drink oat milk, which she really likes, and I think they've made some oat milk ice creams now, but we've never tried them yet. So that's been a challenge. But everything's working out there, and then our other girl's like a picky eater, and so she does like chocolate, but sometimes she'll want a cupcake, but that's about it. So, I think this will wrap up my first episode of Everyday Living Recipes with Love. I really, really, really hope you've enjoyed this podcast. This is something I really wanted to do and create, and I hope it really connects with everybody and draws some more attention to these kind of things. Um, I'm not here for fame, I'm not doing it for that. I just wanted to kind of bring back my family history and my family roots in this podcast. And I really think if she was still here with us, she would love this. She would love that I'm carrying this on and just keeping all these fun recipes back in people's books and back in people's lives. She really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed this first episode. And I'm still learning. I'm not perfect at podcasts, so no judging here, but I just wanted to share some inspiration and some hopeful things, and like just a good thing in the world today. We need it. We need something good to share with the world. There's so much negativity, so much things going on and happening in the world today. And I thought this would be so inspiring for others to listen to. And I'm very, very, very proud of me for having the courage to do this. Because I'm a very, very, very shy person in real life. I'm very outgoing too. It just depends. But I never, ever, ever thought that I would get out of my comfort zone and do something like this. And so I'm very proud of myself. So I'm sorry if there's a lot of ums and a lot of kind of stuttering. I do that when I'm nervous. I tried to perfect this audio as much as possible. I don't like having imperfections. I'm a very much perfectionist. And so it's very hard for me to do these kind of things. I knew that I could not go on YouTube and show my face. I knew that I wanted to do a podcast. And that's what I'm here to do. And I'm just so proud of myself for having the courage to do this, just this part, and doing it for her, keeping her memory alive, and keeping what she loved to do here. And when they stopped this radio show, she got lots and lots of fan mail. And so I really think that her fans that really loved her would really love this and would really love me bringing it back. And so I just hope this inspires others to step out of your comfort zone and go do the things that you want to do and follow those dreams. And it doesn't matter if you're shy or scared, just like I was to do this. You can do it. And I'm proving that to myself every day. So I'm just so happy that I got the first episode out for you guys to listen to. We can continue the discussion with my email until I make this like a YouTube thing. I'm not going to make it a YouTube thing right now. Like I said, I'm not into like showing my face or like getting on there for the public to see me. But someday I might add this podcast to YouTube with like the picture of my podcast and just have it on there as an audio and just sharing it on there. But for now, I'm not wanting to do that. I'm just going to share it on the podcast. And but I do have an email address that you can email in with questions, stuff you would like to talk about on the next episode, or just anything really. I would love to read your thoughts. And so the email for that is everydaylivingrecipeswithlove@gmail.com. That's everydaylivingrecipeswithlove@gmail.com. And I will be checking that email very frequently to kind of include people that want to be involved in this podcast and the people that give me ideas for the podcast. I will be checking it very frequently. Everybody can relate to today's recipe because it's cake. And who doesn't love cake? Well, some people don't. My kids don't. But um, every once in a while, I do love baking cakes still. But usually I bake like cupcakes or more unique items. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I really hope that this podcast brings happiness to your day and inspiration. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next time.